Hi, Run Your Story family. This is Allison Gilliard with Run Your Story, where every story needs to be heard. And you guys are in a treat because in this podcast, you will get not only some great advice, but you'll also get to hear about a unique and very special running item. And you're going to be inspired by a guy who hates running. Yes, hates running. So much fun with Keith Evans. Thank you, Keith, for sharing your story, for being so motivational and what you do with the Bluebell Bombers. Truly inspiring and incredible. And what a guy. Guys, he is so authentic and genuine and full of laughter. And also you're going to hear about someone special that he runs for, which is incredibly amazing. And so I left inspired by Keith. So thank you, Keith, for sitting down with us and sharing your story. It is absolutely beautiful. And guys, this month, this podcast is sponsored by our Patreon supporters. Yay! We love our Patreon supporters so much. And so being a Patreon supporter, yes, you get swag, you get some cool stuff, but it also helps me stay accountable and really appreciate that and that you guys believe in us. And so it's truly an honor, no matter which level you choose as a Patreon supporter. It truly means everything. So become a Patreon supporter if you want. And don't forget to like, share, comment the podcast. And you're going to want to. You're going to want to share Keith's story because it's amazing. And so with that, my friends, lace up those running shoes. Join Keith on his Run Your Story.
Well, thanks, my friend, for coming. I've been looking forward to this for a while because I'm a huge fan of yours. You just got to know that. So I'm so eager to know, how does your run story start?
I'm going to give you a little teaser before we get into it.
Okay.
I hate running.
What?
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll get to that later. But if I had an elevator speech to give and I had to tell you about my run story before you got off on the next floor, I hate running. So.
Hashtag I hate running.
Yes. All right. So I was born and raised in Mobile.
Okay.
And grew up playing baseball all through elementary school, middle school, high school, even college baseball. Jumped into softball after that. One day you got to hang up your cleats and move on to different sports. So I moved into the softball phase of life. So I did softball probably from about age 22 to 32. So I did it for a pretty good while. So basically all I did in those two sports was lift weights and run. And so I promised myself if I could ever get away from these two sports, no more lifting weights and no more running. Well, guess what I do now? So that was the promise. And like I said, I did that till I was 32. And we really did have to hang our cleats at that point because everybody was having kids. People were just moving on to different phases of life. We couldn't play all the time. So I had a void. I was like, well, what am I going to do now? I'm a little bit older. I don't want to play softball anymore, so I got to do something. Well, about that same time, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And it was a weird time because I really wasn't that active, and my mom had cancer, and I needed something to do. I needed some type of hobby. So around 2007, I was at work. I work at Ingalls Shipbuilding. And one of my coworkers, he would always come into work with a race T-shirt on. It could be Senior Bowl. He was from Mobile, so it would be a different race shirt. And I used to make fun of him because I said, man, all you do is run. That's all you do. Because I'm used to doing all this different stuff. And all he did was run, and that's all he talked about. And so I basically was making fun of him. And it kind of planted a seed in my head. And it was weird because the next week, our company sent out an email. And it was a Senior Bowl run invitation. And so I was thinking, I'm in shape from baseball and softball. I can sign up for this run. My friend does it, and I might as well just try it because he does it all the time. He likes it. I signed up for that race, and it was actually the Senior Bowl 5K. And I had no idea how long a 5K was. I literally Googled 5 kilometers, and I had to figure out how many miles it was.
Okay.
So I said, hey, 3.1 miles? I played softball, baseball all my life. This is nothing. I got it. So that was in November. I had signed up for the race in September. I literally gave myself a month to train for this. And I wasn't really trying to train. I didn't know what I was doing. So I had a month to get ready. I thought it was going to be easy just because of my background. And I went outside and I went to run for basically the first time on my own without a coach telling me to. just so I could say, hey, I can run 3 miles, just have that confidence going into it. Well, I didn't make it but a quarter mile, and I couldn't keep running. I thought my fitness background, just from playing those sports all those years, would just allow me to go do that, and that wasn't the case. So I got humbled really quick, because I thought I was in shape. And I was like, wow, running really is hard, and it's going to take some work to put into it. So I practiced a couple times in my neighborhood and went down the street and all this stuff, and I could not finish 3 miles without stopping by no means. The best time I could do was 29 minutes. And it was all I could do. Like, I was done. Like, I said, okay, I'm gonna be somewhere around 30 minutes on my first 5K. So it was funny because the day before that first race, I had no clue what I was doing. My friend at work, I told him, I said, hey, I finally signed up for a race. And he said, well, you got any questions? And I said, yeah. I said, I really need to know what the course is and where to go. And this is the truth. And he said, Keith, you're going to be okay. Just follow everybody else. I had this envision that I was just going to be out in the front, and I was going to show up to this race, and I need to know where to go because I was going to be in the front of the pack. Well, he got a big laugh out of that. I show up to the Senior Bowl 5K, did not have a clue what I was doing. Lance said the other week I had the long basketball shorts on. I had cotton socks on, cotton everything. I didn't know what I was doing. But I showed up. I threw on some shoes that I had. It was good enough for what I was doing. It was a memorable race, not only because it was my first race, but it was typical of what you would think. I went out way too fast. As soon as that gun went off, I took off. I was in front of the kids and everybody else. I was gone. And it caught up with me really quick. And it was painful. It was a long race, and it hurt. And when I got done with that race, I didn't have a watch or anything. Like, I didn't know anything about pace or anything like that. So when I got done with the race, I was humbled so much in that race because I got passed by kids, I got passed by older people, I got passed by strollers, and I'm thinking, I thought I was in shape for all these years, and now all these people, for some reason, are just way better at me than running. And I finished the race, but it was very eye-opening. And so when I crossed that finish line after that 3.1 miles, I could not go another step. I was done. Like, I was totally fatigued because I totally raced the wrong way. And so it hurt, but I learned a lot about it. And I said one thing. I said, never again. I am not racing ever again, because it was miserable. You know, if you do it the wrong way, it becomes miserable. So I couldn't go one step further. Monday rolls around, and my friend was like, well, how'd you do in the race? I was like, man, I don't even know. I forgot to look at the clock. I was dead. I died at the finish line. He looked up the results, and I did 24:41.
Whoa!
And I'm telling you,
what?
The best I could do in my neighborhood when I was practicing was 29 minutes, and I was giving it everything I had. There's something to be said about adrenaline in a race and just people being around you.
Absolutely.
That was totally just being in an environment. And racing kind of stupid too, but that just shows you go from 30 minutes to 24 minutes for my first race ever. So that right there, I think, is what kind of planted that seed in my head. So even though I said never again, and even though I felt like I died at the finish line, with no training, I was able to pull off 7:57 pace or something like that. I had no clue I could do that. Now, we used to run like 6:30 miles in high school for baseball and stuff, but that was back when I was 16, 17 years old. This was different. I was 32 years old now. So it's a new baseline. So anyway, so that's what happened. And even though I said never again because I didn't enjoy the race too much, when I got home, I really sat down and thought, what if I trained? It's a what if mentality. I'll steal a lot of stuff from David Goggins because I've read all his books. And there's a lot of philosophies that he does believe in and mantras and things like that. And he has the what if question also. If you sit down and think, what if? Even though I had a miserable race, what if I actually prepared for one? What could I really do? Because I literally dropped 6 minutes off of what I really thought I could do just by showing up and trying. That's how I got hooked on running. It's just a really bad experience trying to find a hobby that would fill a void with some type of athletic endeavor into it, and that's how I got hooked on it. I did that 5K in November of 2007. 1 month later, I signed up for another one. I was like, because I told you I want to do better. I was like, what if I train for it? And I started running a little bit. 2 weeks after that, I did my third 5K. So I guess you could say I'm almost hooked now because it's like I'm looking for the next one.
Sure.
My times are getting better every time, and just by putting a couple of miles in and actually racing smarter.
Mm.
I mean, you learn something new every race.
Absolutely.
Because I vowed to never again go out that fast in a race. And so you learn something every race. So 2 weeks after that, I did my first 10K. Now, I used to look at people doing 10Ks. These are like the elite athletes of the country, because 6.2 miles, there's no way. Because I almost died after 3.1.
Sure.
So I was thinking, how do people run double that distance? I knew some friends that ran the Zaya Trail 10K, and I'm thinking, man, there's no way I could ever sign up for a 10K. I did that 2 weeks after that race. So once I started doing all these races, as an engineer, I created a spreadsheet, and I was tracking all of these races.
That.
I was like, for this race, I did this pace, had these shoes on, I ate this. I still have that today.
You and James Contrada.
I still have it today. It's a long spreadsheet now, and I've learned a lot from it. But I tell you what, that accountability, it makes you really look at it, and you go back and say, crime prevention's coming up in next week. And I can go back and look at all my crime preventions and say, I started here, I did this on that day, I was in this shape on that race. You can learn so much just by looking at your own statistics. And it's not about your finish time. I wish really some of these races didn't have a finish clock, because I think we get too focused on what was your time? What was your time?
That's so good. Yeah.
Every time you get done with a race, everybody's like, what was your time? What was your time? How about going up to somebody and saying, how did you feel? Or did you do what you wanted to do? Or you don't have to ask somebody what their time is, because I just think it separates people in a bad way sometimes. So if we could focus on finish lines and not finish times, I think the sport would be a little bit better. So anyway, the spreadsheet is about just learning and trying to get better. It has nothing to do with really what your finish time is. So that's what I get out of it. So that's how I got started in 2007. There were some girls that were running really well out there that I used to try to keep up with. Tammy Ford, Rhonda Collins, they were all Bluebell bombers. They had their gear on, and of course they invited me out. Eventually they invited me out one day. I was like, I can never keep up with these girls, because they would pass me every race. And I was like, I don't feel like I'm good enough to come train with y'all, but I'll show up. And guess who I met? Victor Birch. If there's one person I've learned the most about running, it's from him. And he showed me the definition of what it means to show up. And excuse me, it's sad. Yeah. So he showed me what it's like to show up and just push yourself to get better every day. Victor, he didn't get too much caught up on times. He's taught me that. Keith, it don't matter what your time was. Just go out there and do the best you can do.
Absolutely.
He taught me what it means to prepare. And, those girls, I never caught them hardly. It was years before I caught those girls, but that just goes to show you the value of being around people that are pushing themselves. So there's always, in a group like the Bombers, there was always people ahead of you. There was always people behind you. Somebody training for a different race, this race. There's always something to latch on to for you to push yourself. And I think that community is really what helped me really understand running. Like, I showed up with no knowledge. I didn't know how to do anything with running, but then you learn everything from people that's been in the game for a while. I learned what a Garmin watch was. I learned what not to wear cotton on race day. I mean, all these little things that help you, it starts to make sense because these people are experts at it. So the Bombers has been obviously a really huge part of my running. So roll over to 2008, my first 10K, Zaya Trail. Definitely will never forget this race, not just because it was my first 10Ks. It was March 29th, 2008. It's my wife's birthday.
Oh,
and
there we go.
I was like, hey, I'm going to do a 10K. It's your birthday. This is a good day. It's the day my mom passed away.
Oh, wow.
So it just goes to show you that is the sign that my life had at that point to say, this is the sport you're fixing to do. Because you know what? My mom can't do it. And if I need something to fill my void for my hobby, I'm into this running thing, and it's just a sign, because I did the Zaya Trail, then I went to her house, and that's the day she passed away. So she died of cervical cancer.
Wow.
So if I can just throw a plug in there for cervical cancer, for all you females out there, you need to go to the doctor once a year, because my mom did not go to the doctor yearly. And matter of fact, the last time she had went before that was when I was born. Wow. It was 30 years later that she had been to the doctor. So things could have been caught in advance, and she suffered for 3 years. And if that statement just helps one person, it's worth it.
Absolutely.
So anyway, that was just a sign in my life right then that I knew running was what I was fixing to do. So every time I go out to run, I think about my mom.
Oh,
I mean, because Some people don't know this, and that's the real reason why I run. I got into it because of a friend, and I needed something to do athletically, but I knew when my mom passed away, I said, I'm fixing to run. So those days I don't want to go out and run, it's easy for me to go out and run. So I wasn't stopping at a 10K because my mom wasn't going to let me stop at something like that. She would have keep pushing me to keep doing it. So I signed up for a 10 miler. I mean, who's going to sign up for a 10 miler that early? You know, I couldn't even run 10 miles. So I did that. 2009, fast forward a year, I'm signing up for my first half marathon.
Wow.
And that was just like, I don't even know if I could finish that seriously. I was like, I'll sign up for it. Some friends talked me into it, and I was like, I don't know if I can finish it, but I'll walk it if I have to. Fast forward a year, and I'm signing up for my first marathon.
Wow.
Now, this is really getting out of the comfort zone because that was just like going and doing a 200-mile race to me at that time. That was unfathomable. That was another memorable experience because I was like, hey, if I can conquer this marathon, I can conquer a lot of things in life because this is going to be tough. I had to learn how to train for it. Another friend at work taught me into doing this marathon. So he's like, man, I've done one before. It's not that bad. First light marathon in Mobile. I want to do something local. I was in San Diego for a work trip the week before this marathon. I put in some training, but it was enough just to stay on my feet for 4 or 5 hours. I was in San Diego for a work trip, and I looked at the forecast for Mobile the next week, and there was an Arctic blast coming in from Canada. I'm like, I have trained for 4 months to run in 24-degree weather. So in 2010, in January, it was 24 degrees in Mobile, Alabama. And it was so cold, I cannot even explain to you. The day before that, I did a test run. I told you I was in San Diego the week before. I went to a store called REI. It's like a hiking store.
Yeah.
And when I saw that forecast for the Arctic blast, I went and bought a full ski mask. Not a thick one, but a thin one, because it was going to be 24 degrees. Well, I practiced in that mask the day before the marathon, and when I got home, I had frost all over my face.
What?
That's how cold it was the day before.
Wow.
So I was like, well, you know what? I've trained for 4 months. I'm doing this race.
Yeah.
It's going to be painful, but I'm going to do it. And there's a lot of people that just didn't even show up because of the weather forecast.
Yeah.
It was so cold at the start of the race on Government Street, right down by the hotels and all that. It was so cold, nobody would even stand in the streets at the start line. We were all huddled up in the lobbies of the hotels right there. Well, me being a rookie runner, essentially, I had my Garmin on, and I turned on my Garmin while I was in the lobby of the hotel while I was warming up. Well, of course, it's not going to catch a signal in there. Well, guess what? It's time for me to go. The start gun's fixing to go off. So I had to go run the entire marathon without a signal. And that was just a lessons learned right there. You know what? It was a blessing in disguise because it took all my anxiety away.
Sure.
I didn't care about my pace. I shouldn't have cared about my pace. It was my first marathon. So I made it through the marathon. It was just, I can't even explain just how gratifying finishing a marathon is, especially when it's your first one. I literally said never again when I did that one. I meant it that time. I was like, there's no way I'm ever doing this again. Y'all do not understand what I just did.
Right.
I've done 5 more since then. I did a 3:49 marathon. I don't know how I did that. I didn't have a watch to look at. I didn't have anything to look at. I saw clocks on the course. I didn't know what it meant. I had no idea what mile I was at. I didn't know the course or anything. 3:49 marathon.
Man.
I just put it on cruise control on 8:45 pace and just never stopped.
Wow. That's incredible.
Didn't take in enough fluids, didn't eat enough, didn't know what I was doing. So I conquered that marathon. I'll come back in 2012 and did Mobile again. I didn't get quite as good a time as the first one because you learn something new every marathon. There's no guarantee you're going to improve your time on a marathon every time you show up. It was 3:54. 2013, I signed up for New Orleans. I'm like, I got to get out of Mobile. I've done this course twice. It's a brutal course out by South Alabama. I said, I'm going to New Orleans. It's supposed to be flat. And for the most part, it was. I did a 3:44 marathon in New Orleans.
Wow.
It was a little bit better. It was my best time. I'm figuring the nutrition out. I'm figuring the hydration. There's so many different factors. Salt tablets. Something different goes wrong every time you have a marathon. And so New Orleans was good. The atmosphere was great. It was a rock and roll marathon. So when you train for a marathon, you are in excellent shape, no matter who you are. You'll find yourself in the best shape of your life. And when you're in that marathon training, you can show up for these 5Ks, and it's like, 3 miles. I might not even put
Right.
my shoes on. So I ran the Joe Cane when I was in the middle of my marathon training and wound up with a personal record. To this day, it's still my personal record. I did an 18:52 at Joe Cane. And the significance of that race to me was I knew that not too long before that, I almost died after that 5K. And I essentially took 6 minutes off of my 5K just from being consistent and showing up and learning about running, and the bombers helping me. And I was just willing to keep showing up and trying to get better, and I was still learning. But for me to do the 18:52 at Joe Cane was just, that opened my eyes to you are way more capable of doing things that you don't think you can do. Sure. Again, I don't want to focus on the times here. It's all about where you came from compared to where you are now. Because in 18:52, I would have bet my whole entire life on there's no way I could do that. Sure. And that was another day where you show up and all the stars align perfectly and you feel good.
And you don't twist an ankle on that course.
You don't twist an ankle on that course. And guess what? I didn't look at my watch that race. So there's some kind of significance without worrying about time sometimes. Anyway, I continue on. 2014, I do Stennis Marathon over in Mississippi at Stennis Space Center. Okay. People had warned me, hey, this is a boring course, but I still wanted to try to figure this marathon thing out because it's so complicated. I wanted to get some of these pieces of the puzzle solved so I could feel better at the end of a marathon like I'd actually knew what I was doing. 3:54 in Stennis, so the same results. I'm happy with 4-hour marathon, but I was just wasn't seeing the improvement like you would normally think if you try to figure all this out. So in 2016, we went back to New Orleans. I'm like, I'm going to get this New Orleans course down pat because I like the festive atmosphere. Rock and Roll was a good sponsor. We had a whole huge group from Mobile going over there, so it was a really good time. And I finally, in my opinion, figured out a lot of things on the marathon that day. And I did my best marathon time ever, which was 3:24.
Whoa!
Now,
seriously?
The significance of that time was that 3:24 was a 7:49 pace, something like that. That was faster pace than the first 5K I ran.
Wow.
In 2007. So just remember, what I had just said was I almost died at the end of that 5K. I could not go one step further. I just ran 26.2 miles at a faster pace than that. That don't even seem humanly possible. Just that it just keeps opening my eyes up to running, like what kind of potential you have in you. It's like it'd be similar to me asking you to go outside right now and sprint down the street, and then when you're sitting there with your hands on your knees, almost dying, then me sitting there telling you go run 26.2 at that pace. You would say there's no way I could do it. There's a way. The way is you keep showing up and you just keep putting the work in. That advancement and that improvement, it will happen. And it don't even matter about the finish times. I'm just talking about comparing A to B. And so things like that is really what keeps me running, because it's like, man, if you put the work in and you keep showing up, you're going to get better. And that's what it's all about, is just beating yesterday. So 2023, just months ago, we went to Houston. We had a huge group. So that was marathon number 6. I don't know why I keep signing up for these things because I'm not a marathoner. Like that is not my favorite distance by no means. Like I don't like them at all. But when you get a huge group, it's like, come on, do it. It's peer pressure. We had a huge group that went over there. Was not my best marathon day, but that's fine. We enjoyed going over there as a team, trying to figure out the marathon still, and we're talking about doing another one. It's like, when is this going to stop? Do I get a free pass? Can I stop at 6? So who knows? Maybe I'll do 7. Maybe I'll stop at 6. Maybe I'll do 10. Who knows? I don't really have a hard requirement there, but I know that those marathons are going to test you every time you show up. And it's not even about marathon day, because you never know how you're going to feel.
That's right.
The whole thing about a marathon is the training that you go through to get to that race day. You enjoy that, you see improvement, and it's going to stick with you for a long time. So who cares what happens on race day? Yeah. You can't really control a lot of those factors. So that's the story leading up to today. So 16 years later and 168 races later.
Wow.
Not counting relays and triathlons and all that other stuff. Yeah, that's what my spreadsheets tell me. 168 races later, here I am.
That's incredible.
For somebody that says that after the first 5K that I'll never do it again, 168 races later, here I am.
And also, I hate running.
I hate running. I'll get to more of that later, but I hate running.
Wow, really I had no idea. Wow, that's incredible. let's talk about some lessons that you've learned from running. You've already shared some of that, being obviously don't compare your time, or it's about the finish line, not the finish time, which I love. I think that's fantastic. And I love how you hit on that when we see each other at the finish line, rather than saying, well, man, like, what was your finish time? That we just say, hey, man, how do you feel? What do you think about the course? Like anything else besides. I love that idea. That's so good.
Absolutely. What I've learned from running, there's a lot of things, but to summarize it up, my favorite thing about running is it gives you instant feedback on your mental strength.
Ooh, that's good.
That is my favorite thing about running. It will tell you right off, it will tell you instantaneously where you stand mentally. Because to me, running is at least 80% mental. The other 20% is preparation. So that's what I like about it. The running community is awesome. I've definitely learned that. Like I touched on that a little while ago. It's not just the bombers. It is the whole entire running community. It's amazing the amount of friends and people I've met. I wouldn't be sitting here right now if it wasn't for the running community. So that's what I've learned from it. You get out of it what you put into it. And there's a lot of truth into that. You can't just show up for a 10K and think you're going to do really well. You have to put the work in.
Absolutely.
And that's what I like about it. Another thing about running, it's a way to constantly put obstacles in your way.
Okay.
And so when you don't feel like signing up for that race, sign up for the race, because it's another obstacle you can put in your way to make you uncomfortable. It's something you don't want to do, and when you sign up for that race, it gives you the mental strength, and if you constantly challenge yourself, I think that's where the growth happens. So if we're sitting in this room at 72 degrees, it feels really good. There's going to be no growth happening right here. When you get out of here and it's 95 and you don't feel like doing that race, there's some growth that's going to happen there. So that's what I've learned. That's another thing I've learned about running. So all that kind of ties into just really mental strength and strengthening your mind. There's a lot of that comes out of the David Goggins books that I've read, and there's a lot of truth behind being mentally strong, and I think running takes a lot of that. So again, learning to be uncomfortable, and running is probably the best sport to make you uncomfortable, because as soon as you start running, it's not too much longer after you start, whether or not you're going out for a 2-mile run or a 10-mile race or whatever, you're going to be uncomfortable at some point.
That's good.
Every time you go out for a run, you're going to get to a point where it's like, man, this is not good. I don't want to do this. That's what I like about running. So it ties into what I touched on earlier. The mind and the body are just capable of so much more than we think. And running's a good sport to make you get out of that comfort zone. So
those are good.
Those are the main things that I've learned out of running, if I had to summarize it.
That's really good. Oh, man. Do you have a favorite race?
I mentioned the Senior Bowl earlier. The Senior Bowl 10K used to be my favorite race. It don't exist anymore.
So sad.
But it was so good because there's not many 10K options.
Yeah.
And if you compare it to the Zaya Trail, it was at a better time of the year. It was in November.
So good.
That first crisp weekend. It was they had good weather. They had good T-shirts. Everybody's in a good mood. I love the Senior Bowl 10K. So that's probably one of my favorite races. I like the turkey trot because it's like a little bit more festive, and it still amazes me to this day that many people get out of bed early on a holiday like Thanksgiving to come run. I'm like, this many people's out here? So I really like the turkey trot. I'd probably say the Battleship 12K is one of my new favorite races. And for various reasons, but just the organization of the race, the course, I just think it's a really good race. And that's kind of the Mobile area races.
Yeah.
If you want to venture out, there's 2 out-of-town races that I feel like are my favorite.
Okay.
I mentioned San Diego earlier. They have a race there that goes from San Diego to Coronado over a big bridge. It's one of my favorite races. It's a 4-mile race. And the other one would be the Pineapple 10K in Hawaii.
Okay.
All right. The reason why I bring that one up, of course, when I'm in Hawaii, what am I going to do? I'm going to go find a race to run. So I've been fortunate to go to Hawaii several times for work. And I'll Google some local races, and I've done a couple of them. But this one was a little bit special because it went through a town called Wahiawa. It was in the middle of Oahu, in a town that my dad was actually stationed at in the Navy.
Get out of here.
And so I got a chance to go run a 10K in his old hometown. Yeah, I'm doing that.
Man.
You cross the finish line, they literally give you a pineapple. So I'm like, I'm in.
Right.
I don't like pineapple, but it's pretty cool. So I got some nicknames from that race from Victor. Pineapple Head, he used to call me that. And the last race that I would say that's probably my favorite is the Rubber Chicken Run. We do that just as an informal run out at Commerce Park where we run for the Bluebell Bombers. And we do it on New Year's morning. And the winner, male and female, gets a rubber chicken. It's a prediction run, so we get a race clock and we turn it around backwards where you can't see it.
Okay.
And we count it down and from like 40 minutes, and you start whenever you think you can finish the 5K, but you want to finish at 0. So everybody's starting at different times, but everybody finishes pretty much at the same time.
Wow.
And whoever finishes closest to 0 wins.
Wow, that's cool.
People seem to like the rubber chicken run.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. I've never heard anything like that.
Victor started it, and
wow.
we're just continuing to do it.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so it's one of my favorite runs.
Man, let's get into talking about routines. What does your pre-race routine look like?
So I'll steal a line from the office. I'm not superstitious. I'm just a little stitious. I don't really have a really huge routine that I have to do. I play it by ear a lot. I just really do anything that reduces anxiety on the race day.
Okay.
And you learn that over the years. Hey, I need to pre-register. I need to get my stuff together the night before. So I do things like that. I eat a light breakfast. I allow enough time to get to the race. I don't want to rush. I do like to do a 1 mile warm up and do some stretching. I don't have really a lot of rituals or routines that I really do, but I do like to run a little bit and just wake the legs up.
What does your post-race routine look like?
Okay, so post-race routine, that's even less glorious. I'm the typical die at the finish line, get some water. I do like to come back sometimes on the course and cheer people on just to see how people are feeling, see how they're doing. Don't care what the clock says. I just want them to look good when they come in and try to finish hard. My wife does a lot of races with me. I like to support my wife at the finish. And I just like to get some dry clothes on and just hang out at the wards and have fun. I just like to see other people have fun and do good. There's no better feeling than somebody coming up to you saying, man, I did so good today. They like it, and they're like, when's the next race? People catch that runner's high, and that's what I like about it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much.
Yeah.
What is Keith's favorite running idol? I have to know this.
I thought that was a hard question, but it came to me really quick. I have a blanket, and my blanket is made up of old T-shirts, old running T-shirts, and my wife made it for me. And I had no idea she was making this blanket for me. So as you can accumulate running T-shirts fast, and you just got them stacked in places. What am I going to do with all these T-shirts? Well, I had them stacked in my nightstand or something, and I guess over the course of 3 or 4 weeks when my wife was making this blanket, she would steal a shirt just incrementally so I wouldn't recognize it. And thank goodness I didn't go looking for them because they were disappearing quick. Next thing I know, I forget which holiday it was that I got this, maybe Christmas, my birthday, I can't remember what it was, but she gave it to me. And it meant a lot to me because it was the first part of my running career where all the races that I had done, it's now in a blanket.
Oh.
And I tell you something special about that blanket. At the Do It in the Bush, every year they have a local runner's picture on the shirt. And one year Victor Birch had his picture on the shirt. And so we hung that blanket up at Commerce Park after Victor's accident because we had a big group of people up there. And it just so happened that Do It in the Bush shirt with Victor on it is on that blanket.
Oh, man.
So that's not by chance. That's my favorite blanket. So that's my favorite running item.
Absolutely.
By far.
Oh.
Absolutely. Yep.
And it's like the perfect thing after you get done running, take a shower, get the couch, and you're with the blanket.
Yep.
I love that.
Yep.
Oh, man. What are you running, my friend?
All right. My go-to trainer, and I'm probably in the minority here, I like the Mizuno Wave Rider.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I like the Mizuno Wave Rider. It just fits me good. It's not too cushiony. It's not too not cushiony. I think it's right in the middle. So I like the Mizuno Wave Rider. Now for racing, I prefer a high performance type shoe like a Vaporfly or Alphafly. I've got into those in the past year, and they help. They do help. So I'm kind of boring when it comes to shoes, really. But I'll tell you what, I'm consistent. Once you see me in a shoe that works, that's what I'm going to be in.
That's so, Melissa all day long.
I'll buy 10 pair of them if I have to. Yeah, Melissa takes a little bit extreme, and Sue Ann Whitespunner does too, but I do stick with what works. I don't experiment too much in running.
I like it. Very cool.
Yeah.
For those long runs, you talked about how you've experimented with fuel. So what right now is working with you fueling?
I've been a goo person forever, but I
Okay.
have experimented with UCAN recently.
Okay.
And I do like the consistency of it. I do like the fact that there's no sugar or no caffeine. So that's pretty much my go-to right now is
Okay.
UCAN. I do eat Cliff Bars and take liquid IV, salt tablets, electrolytes. That's pretty much my go-to things right there. I'm not anti-goo, but I'll take goos every now and then, but I think UCAN is probably what works for me right now.
Gotcha. And I think that's the thing that, and you've hit on it too, is that with running, it's that sport that you do experiment with. You try things and then you do find what works for you and you're like, I like this. And then, yeah, I love that. That's fantastic.
And something like goos or UCAN, that might work for you for a period and then it don't
Correct.
work anymore as your body changes. So you do have to evolve with some stuff.
Absolutely. Great point. That's so good. Do you have a favorite running memory?
All right. I do have a favorite running memory. We've done a lot of relays with the Bluebell Bombers. Relays are a totally different animal. So a typical relay is you pile up in this van and you're doing some 200-mile course and you do it with 12 people. Allison gets out and runs her leg and then we come pick you up and then I get out and do my leg and you just keep rotating until you finish the 200 miles. That's the format of them. We did this Southern Odyssey relay in Georgia. That was our first relay. Victor Birch had this idea, we're not going to take 12 people, we're going to do it with 6 people.
Okay.
The quick math says you're going to be running double. And that's exactly what we did. So instead of 16-ish miles apiece over that 24 hours, we did 32 miles apiece.
Wow.
And it sounded like a really good idea when he brought it up. And even in Mobile, we're like, this is a good idea. Let's go do it. When we got in the middle of that, it was not a very good idea. So essentially what the relay did, it turned into an ultra relay for us because we were running more than 26.2 miles. So our team of 6, we finished the 200-mile course in 25 hours, and that was a 7:44 pace for that team.
Wow.
And for us to imagine that we could even pull off something like that was crazy, to even finish it, much less to have a pace like that. And that was pretty intimidating because I was still young in my running career at that point. Going out there and running relays with Victor Birch and all his running buddies, that was tough.
How hilly was this?
There is nothing flat about Georgia. There really isn't. There's nothing flat about Georgia. So you are not running on flat surfaces at all. There's not a hill in Mobile that can compare to any of those hills that we ran up.
And you guys kept that pace? We
kept the 7:44 pace. So that's probably my favorite running memory. We did some other relays. We've done them with 10 people, 12 people. I'm going to bring Victor Birch up a few times in this conversation because he's been such a big part of my running career. But in one of those relays, we ventured away from Southern Odyssey a couple of years and we went to do Blue Ridge up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And just the title alone tells you how hilly it was. Well, Victor Birch was on his leg and he went off running and it was at nighttime. So we're in the van and we're trying to catch up with him because we might let you out of the van and go do your leg and we might sit there for 45 minutes until you're gone because we can't shadow you. But anyway, so Victor was way up there doing his leg and we were driving to go find him. We're driving down the road and it's dark and I look up in the sky and I see this red blinking light and I'm like, man, that helicopter's low. What is this thing doing? You know? So we start looking. It was Victor Birch. He was on top of one of the hills that he was running, and it was a red blinking light on the back of his head. I'm like, we are running in the biggest mountains I've ever seen in my life. How did Victor get up that mountain? I'm like, this is not going to be fun. So Victor's the man. He was on those legs by design. You can look at the relay legs in advance and say, well, we're going to get Victor to do this one. We'll get you to do this one. So we put him on all the hard legs. And I'm glad he had that leg because there ain't no way I was coming up that hill. So that's probably one of my favorite memories right there. Other relays that we did were the New Orleans to Pensacola Beach relay. So that's local. You come straight through Mobile. And we had a team of bombers doing that. And we had some good times doing that because we had some legs here in Mobile. I was able to run up the Cochran Bridge. And it's just really cool to run through your hometown.
Yeah.
We even ran down Hillcrest. We're like, man, we run down here all the time. This is the holler route. These other people from out of town that were racing with us, they're like, man, this is a hilly stretch right here. We do this all the time. It's no big deal. So you get to know people really well on these relays. Even people that you think you know, when you're cooped up in a van for 2 days, you get to know people really well.
And their smells.
Oh, it's the whole 9 yards because you sleep for an hour, then you have to run, then you have to eat. So relays are fun. If you've never done one, I'd highly consider one.
They're
awesome. Very fun.
I love that.
So those are my favorite memories. I got a bunch of memories from running, but those kind of is a more team. It's a more team environment.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's, again, another aspect of community.
Yes.
With that. I love that so much. So when Keith is running and he's being little Mr. Speed, is there something that you are like, man, I cannot wait to eat this after?
So a post-race meal, I would have to say I love Butch Cassidy's.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite restaurants. My mom, it was her favorite restaurant, so it's definitely my favorite restaurant. That's probably one of my favorite places to go after a race. I'm simple. I like steak, baked potato, hamburgers. We're real picky.
Gotcha. Okay.
I get made fun of all the time because we're real picky, but I keep it simple. That's what I like to eat after the race. Pre-race I'm not that superstitious on pre-race. Let's say it's an 8 a.m. 5K race. I like power waffles. They're made by Kodiak. Get them from Walmart or whatever. Those are light on the stomach. They work for me. Pre-race meal used to be peanut butter sandwich and a Red Bull. I wouldn't recommend that.
Oh,
because it worked for a little bit, and then after a while, it's like, I just really can't handle this no more.
Wow.
But I thought that's what worked at the time. Maybe that's why I did so bad in my first few 5Ks. But yeah, I just keep it light. Like I do not eat a real huge breakfast. I keep it light. But mentally, I need to have something in my stomach.
Sure.
I don't care if it's just a piece of toast.
Yeah.
If I show up with nothing, it's not going to be good. So
I like it.
That's the fuel that I have. It's not really scientific or anything like that. Whatever works for you.
Yeah, I like it. Do you have running jams?
I used to run with music, and if I do really long runs, I can have some music, but I tend to not use music anymore, and there's a lot of reasons why I don't. As the owner of a new electric vehicle, they're really quiet, and I like to be able to hear things coming up on me. This is going to sound corny, but I like to hear nature. I like to hear things around me.
Sure.
So once I got away from the music, I don't really want to go back to it. There's another reason, which is like, what if you're used to that music, and that's what really gets you through these runs, and you show up for a race and that music don't work? Where are you going to be at that point? So I don't want to depend on it to the point where I just got to have it.
Yeah.
So that's that reducing anxiety thing I was telling you about before the race. I don't want to worry about, is my phone charged enough? Is my AirPods working? Are they charged? I just don't want to deal with that. I do like to listen to my breathing. I like to listen to people around me. And once I got away from it, I just couldn't go back to the music.
Okay.
I'll do it on a long run. Like, I'm not anti-music, but yeah, not even for a marathon no more. Like, I just have to have no music.
I like it.
And some people, like my wife, she's like, how do you run with no music? I just am used to running with no music.
Hey, but nature is your music.
Nature's my music. And also, when you hear dogs coming or something like that sometimes that can save you a few seconds.
Sure, yeah.
Because they will sneak up on you.
Absolutely.
So I like to hear, and I like to hear vehicles and dogs and people. So that's why I don't have music.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite recovery tool?
I'm a big fan of the Normatec recovery boots.
Yes.
They are pricey, but they come in really handy when you're going through some kind of laborious training, like marathon training, or if you just had a bad week at work, going upstairs or something, like they really do work.
Yeah.
They're pricey for a reason because they actually speed up the recovery process. So we got the boots, we got the Normatec calf sleeves. You can buy whatever body part you want. They got a sleeve for it, I think. So those really help. The percussion gun, that's just like a staple for any runner because you're going to go through some type of tightness or soreness. Those always work out the knots, and the roller sticks and things like that. So that's pretty much the recovery tools.
I like it.
I will flirt with an ice bath every now and then.
Oh, okay.
Bo Reynolds has turned me on to those ice baths, and Bradley Thompson. That's two people you need to get on the show, by the way. They're going to kill me for saying that. But yeah, the ice bath, there's a lot of social media frenzy about that right now, and you can read the benefits about it. And there's a lot of good benefits of it, but that is something that's really hard to make yourself do.
Absolutely.
It's tough, and we've done it, but I don't do it on a routine basis. That I might start doing that, but I hadn't decided yet.
Okay. Favorite cross-training activity?
We have a Peloton room in our house, and we have a Peloton bike, and we have a Peloton treadmill.
Ooh, nice.
So I never have an excuse not to
Mhm.
do something,
Mhm.
no matter what the weather is. I do some Peloton bike for cross training. I do strength training, and I do yoga.
Mm.
So those are probably the three things that help me do other physical activity other than running. I think it's really bad to do just running.
Absolutely.
You're repetitive, same muscles. You've got to venture out and do something different.
Mm-hmm.
Yoga's a lifesaver to me.
Yeah.
It's so beneficial, and I used to make fun of people that did yoga. But I'm that person now.
Yeah.
I need yoga.
That's the thing that I love about having Peloton is that I have just the bike. I don't have the tread too, but having access to this, they have one for strength training for runners. They have the yoga, and
It's a community, really.
It is so good.
There's so many different apps,
Yes.
so many different things on their app. Like I don't even know what all, I hadn't even flirted with all of it
But
yet.
it's a lot of it's tailored to runners, which I think is fantastic. You know, I'm looking at this stuff and I'm like, this is exactly what I need. And again, like you said, if it's a bad day and you can't put in the miles,
Right.
Hey, you can get on the bike and ride. And
Right.
I love that.
The first yoga class I did on Peloton, I was thinking, this is going to be so easy, man.
Oh.
There's some yoga classes I can't even get through. And you throw the strength training into those yoga classes where they grab the dumbbells and stuff, I'm going to wear out when I get done. Those instructors are in shape.
Oh, man.
They're in very good shape.
Okay. Do you have a worst race?
Well, I've already explained the first marathon in 24-degree weather and all that stuff. Stennis Marathon being boring. We had a do it in the bush race one year, and I forget what year it was, 2009 or something like that. It was pouring down rain. And, you know, I can handle a little bit of rain. You're going to get it in Mobile every now and then. But this was when the race used to start in the big soccer field in the open. And so it had been pouring down so bad. I'm talking about this was a downpour. This wasn't just a normal rain shower. There was just a lake of water in front of us. And there was no rerouting of the course. When the gun went off, we took off through the lake. So you immediately went through this race with soaking wet socks and shoes. So that was a bad race.
Man.
That was a bad race. When my socks get wet, I'm out. I'm not like physically out, but I'm mentally out. I'm like, all right, this is not going to be good. Like, all that mental stuff I'm telling you about, it goes out the window when my socks get wet. I'm done. But if recently, I'd say the Sunset Bridge run at Dolphin Island.
Oh, okay.
A couple years ago, this 4-mile race happened, and when we got to what we thought was going to be the finish line, it wasn't the finish line.
Oh.
So all of us that just trekked up the bridge and trekked down in this hot temperatures, and we were expecting 4 miles mentally, the finish line was 4.5 miles. So when you get mentally prepared to be done at 4 and you have to go 4.5, that half a mile seems like 5 miles.
Absolutely.
So that one threw us all for a loop. That was a bad race. And I did really well on the time, I thought, but it was just the mental aspect of that one. Whenever you think you're done and you plan for something, we had to keep going, and we still talk about that race today. Hey, y'all, this is not a 4-mile race. It's a 4.5-mile race. Wow. They finally started advertising it as a 4.5-mile race.
Wow.
So, yeah, that one was a bad one. I hadn't really had horror stories on races. These are all just little things, pet peeves of mine, but things happen at races, and I appreciate the preparation and the volunteers. And if me and you put on a race, there's going to be problems with it. Don't ever come down too hard on race organizers or it should have been this or it should have been that. People are trying the best that they can do. And if you don't like it, then volunteer and help.
Yes, absolutely.
Because a lot of people don't understand how much work goes into it. It takes tons of volunteers. People have to show up early, even days and weeks before to get the stuff ready. So when stuff does go wrong like that, you just shake it off and say, I'm just glad to be out here.
That's good. It's something that I try to tell people is that we as runners, we wouldn't get to do what we get to do crossing the finish line if it wasn't for volunteers.
Absolutely.
So I like that little nod that you gave there. It was great. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to start running?
I would definitely say start small. I've seen some people get into the sport of running and, hey, I'm doing a 10K next week. You just started running and you're going to do a 10K next week. I think starting small and easing your way into it, because there's a lot of people that just want to jump right into it and train and do the longest distance they can, and there's no rush. That just opens injuries and fatigue and burnout. Just take it easy, start small. More importantly, get the correct type of shoes. So a lot of new runners just get what they had in their closet, like we did on our first race. But if you're going to do any frequent running, you need to have the correct type of shoes. So the running tries, the fleet feets, those people can help you get into the right type of shoe. There's a science behind it. And what works for you might not work for me. And so once you figure that out, it helps your running tremendously. So that's really key for a new person, is to get the right type of shoes. Realize that it's going to be hard. You're not signing up for easy when you sign up for running. It's not
so good.
It's not an easy sport. How many times have people come back and said, man, that run was horrible. Why'd you make me go do that? What'd you expect it to be? It's running. It's not easy. So I'd say just expect that it's going to be bad. So if you're looking for easy, don't run. There's going to be tweaks too when you first get started in running. Your calf is going to hurt. Your hip is going to hurt. Your knee's going to hurt. Your back's going to hurt. Those little twinges is enough to make people quit. And I think every new runner goes through, my foot hurts, my toe hurts, I've got, name the injury. We all go through them. And I think as a new runner, you're just going to go through them even more. It don't mean you're not a runner. Oh, I can't run. My knees hurt. My knees hurt too when I first started running. So I think just being able to work through those and actually become a student of running and learning about it helps you respect the sport and prepare yourself. You can't just show up and think everything's going to be perfect every run.
That's right.
It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. But another piece of advice I'd give new runners is, I'd say be careful not to put labels on people. And what I mean by that is, and you don't even really have to be a new runner for this, anybody that kind of looks at another runner and says, I'm not as fast as that person because they're just a good runner and I'm not. So in that situation, what you've done is you've put a label on that person, and it's a get out of jail free card for yourself. You're just basically saying, I can't do what they're doing because they're blessed or they have some genetic advantage or something like that. What it really means is you're just not willing to do what they're doing. So it gets deep, but it's like, we all do that naturally though. We put labels on people like, I can't run a 3-hour marathon because I'm just not built that way. How do you know you can't run a 3-hour marathon? How do you know you can't run that 30-minute 5K that you're shooting for? How do you know that you can't do that? You have not even tried and put yourself in that situation. That person that you're looking at, that you're idolizing or that you want to be like, or that goal that you want to accomplish, you have to have a plan to get there. You don't just show up and it happens. So I think as a new runner, I think you look at certain runners, you're thinking, there's no way I could ever do that. That person just ran a 25-minute 5K. There's no way I'm ever going to do that. You've already put your boundaries up. You've already put your boundaries up. So don't put a label on that runner as having some type of advantage. You need to focus on things you can control, which is just yourself. And again, throw the times out the window. I don't care what the time is, it's the goal. It's like, if you want to be better than you were yesterday, then you obviously got to prepare and make it happen. People don't have any free passes. People don't just show up and run really excellent times in races or meet their goals in their races because they just showed up and decided to do it. They've accomplished that goal months in advance and sometimes years in advance. So you can't compare yourself as a new runner to somebody that's been running for 30 years either. I mean, I remember looking at Victor Birch and several other runners in the community thinking, no way I'll ever be like them. I was a new runner. How can I say that? Like, I can't fast forward the future. And so I think that's some good advice for a new runner. Just be careful putting labels on people, because until you're willing to do what they're doing, you can't just give yourself a get out of jail free card. That you can't do that. That spreadsheet that I told you as an engineer that I developed, and I still keep up to this day, I've labeled that spreadsheet something that David Goggins speaks to in his book, and it's called a cookie jar.
Okay.
That spreadsheet is my cookie jar. That cookie jar helps you out in a lot of different situations. If I'm doing something challenging, it don't have to be running, but since we're talking about running, if I'm doing something challenging, if I get into a race, if we're doing a 5K, there's going to come to that point in the race where it's going to start to get hard. I'm not going to like it. It happens every race. Think about that cookie jar that you have. Envision all the things that you've done to get to that point. If you're struggling in a 5K, think about all the 5Ks that you've ran in the past. Like, you have put in work. You have done training. You've been here before. You've done this. So when you get to 1 second decision. That's that fight or flight syndrome. We all go through that in a race. You're going to have a 1 second decision in your mind during a race where it says, I'm either going to quit or I'm going to keep going. And so that fight or flight syndrome, what gets you past that point is reaching back into that cookie jar and looking at all the things that you accomplished. Like, I can finish this 5K. You know why? I've done a marathon before. This is just 3 miles. I can finish this 5K because I've survived my mom passing away. I've done a lot tougher things than this 5K. So when I'm having that pity party in that race, I have a pity party every race.
Do you really?
Mentally, it's like, why am I doing this? Why should I even push myself right now? This is not what I want to be doing. This is hard. Mentally, your competition is that little voice in your head that's telling you that every race. To get past that, it's easy for me to just sit back and think of all the things hard that I've done.
Yeah.
It pushes me through that point. And so that cookie jar, that spreadsheet that I have, it just shows me that I've showed up 168 times. And so what makes this 5K any different? I'm going to finish this 5K. I'm going to put that next entry in my spreadsheet. Like, when I go to work the next day, I'm going to put that entry in my spreadsheet. And, and I want to see it. Could care less what the time is. What that spreadsheet tells me is, I just finished another crime prevention. I just finished another whatever. And so you can insert running these races to whatever you got going on in your life. It could be whatever event that you want to challenge yourself with. I studied for that test and passed it. I studied for 2 years and got a master's degree. Whatever that goal is in your life, you reach back and you just think about the things. I can get this master's degree because I got my undergraduate. That's easy. So I think we forget sometimes how tough we really are. I think we sell ourselves short a little bit. When you start doubting yourself, that's all it takes in a race for you to give up. So, I'm done. This is something else out of David Goggins' book. We all have a governor in our brain.
Okay.
If you look at some of these vehicles, they have a governor. The car gets up to 120 miles an hour, it shuts off. It's a safety feature. Your brain has a governor in it, just like a car. When you get to that point, and I'm going to use the race as an example, and it starts to get hard, your brain is naturally going to tell you, Allison, you need to back off. This is not good. This is uncomfortable. We don't need to be doing this. You got to learn to push past that governor. You have to literally rewire your brain to tell it no. And you can do things in your daily life that actually helps you get past some of those mental things. David Goggins says, do something that sucks every day.
Okay.
That's hard to do because we don't want to do things like that every day because we want to be comfortable and we want to do easy things. We want to do the things that we like. And yes, there's times to do that, and that's what we're going to do. But if you take a small example, you're at the grocery store and you put your groceries in your car and you got the buggy sitting there. Do you walk halfway across the parking lot and put the buggy back in the buggy return, or do you leave your buggy sitting there by your car? Well, it's raining or it's hot. I just want to leave the buggy right here. That's what your brain's telling you. Force yourself to return the buggy. And so that's one decision that you've made that day that helps you tell your brain, nope, we're fixing to put the buggy back. So then it could be later on in the day. Well, I want to eat this pizza right here because this pizza looks really good, but I'm trying to lose weight, so I'm going to eat this salad right here. You tell your brain, we're not eating a pizza, we're eating a salad. So eventually, if you keep telling your brain no, when you get in hard situations in life, like a 5K or a 10K or the death of your mom or failing a test or any type of hard life situation, you're more mentally prepared because you can actually not negotiate with yourself and actually tell your brain different things.
Wow.
Because we're all naturally wired to shut down when things get tough. So that's another thing I love about running that we were talking about earlier is every time you go out for a run, every race that you do, you have to constantly tell your brain, no, I'm not stopping now. No, we're not quitting. Everybody else is finishing. We got to finish. So running's all mental.
Absolutely.
You can train. You can run a little bit. You can train, get ready for whatever you're trying to get ready for. But if you're not mentally ready, I think you're never going to see your true potential.
That's so good. Speaking of when things get hard, do you have a mantra?
So I've had several throughout the years. I think self-talk and visualization are good, but I think they only work if you've put in the work. Does that make sense? So, in other words, if you show up to take a test or something like that and you want to psych yourself up and say, we're fixing to pass this test, I'm going to knock it out. Well, guess what? You're not going to unless you actually study.
That's right. Yeah.
So the same thing applies to running or anything else. It's like mantras are good, they help, but the best way to get past that 1 second decision again where you want to fight or flight is to actually have put in the work. If you prepare, then there's no negotiating with yourself when you get in those hard spots. You can motivate yourself, you can rally yourself and say, come on, let's go. Finish. Those help, but I just take it a step before that. And if you prepare, you're not worried about that during the hard times because you know you're ready.
That's good.
Now, with the mantras, like I said, I have used some in the past. I'll say right now for a typical 5K race, I break that thing down into 3 separate phases. Mile 1, Mile 2, and Mile 3.
Okay.
And this is nothing scientific or special to me, but what helps me is Mile 1, the only thing I'm repeating in my head is pace. And that means pace yourself.
Okay.
And that's a direct lessons learned from my first race where I went out too fast. It's not a guarantee that I'm not going to go out too fast, but it will make me constantly remind myself, pace yourself. You can tell by your breathing. You can tell where you're at in the race. Mile 1 is pace. I will say pace in my head a million times while I'm in that first mile. I force myself to pace myself. Mile 2 is maintain. So Mile 2 is maintain for me because I want to stay where I'm at.
Okay.
If I do my job on Mile 1, Mile 2, I just need to keep what I got. In other words, you don't have to speed up a lot. Try not to fall off. So just maintain what you got. You did good. You paced yourself on Mile 1, so let's just keep that going. What you will find is you will naturally speed up after your legs get warmed up, and if you do it right, if you don't go out too fast, that maintain, you'll actually speed up on that second mile. Third mile, finish. You just got to do what you got to do to finish the third mile. So pace, maintain, finish. So that's my mantra that I use. And
I like it.
It works for me.
That's good.
It works for me. I guess once you do 168 races, you have to talk to yourself and figure something out to think, because I don't listen to music.
Yeah.
I'm talking to myself.
Sure.
Mentally, if I'm not thinking on those lines right there, I'll be all over the place and I probably won't do very good. But
that's fantastic. I like that.
That's race mantras. I have a lot of life mantras, but we're not going to get into all that.
You can throw some in there if you want to, Keith.
All right. I've mentioned David Goggins a couple of times. He's got a lot of good information in his books. He's got a lot of mantras. No one is coming to save you. That's deep, because basically what that means is you need to take ownership of your surroundings and your environment. Don't play victim. Cameron Haynes is another social media guy that I follow. He has something that says, no one cares, work harder. That one hurts too, because when you're having that pity party in that race, no one cares, work harder. It's kind of, it sounds direct, like you're not working hard, but it just goes to show you that quit feeling sorry for yourself. Just get out there and put in the work.
Yeah.
You can feel sorry for yourself, but if you want to do something, just go do it. David Goggins also has a Roger that mentality. He's ex-military and he's got all these military terms, but Roger that, there's some truth to this mantra, because when you show up for that do it in the bush in the middle of the soccer field and there's a lake you got to run through and it's pouring down rain and it's hot, Roger that. That's what we're fixing to do.
Yeah.
Whereas you look around and maybe some other people are going like, man, it's raining. This is horrible. I don't even want to be here. They've already talked themselves out of even trying to do well in the race. So Roger that can apply to a lot of things in your life. If you walk out to your car right now and you got a flat tire, Roger that. Let's fix it.
Yeah.
So you can sit there and cry, or you can just move on and deal with it. So I get over some big things in life. Roger that. That don't mean take life lightly and don't react to things. But anyway, I mentioned one earlier. Do something that sucks every day. I use that mantra a lot. I just remind myself, don't choose easy all the time. Just do things that challenge yourself. And it don't mean you got to go run 200 miles. It just means go do what you don't want to do, because it's that whole process of telling your brain what to do. And I think there's a lot of mental strength behind that helps you in a lot of areas of life.
Absolutely. Oh, man.
Yeah. I'm not trying to get too deep.
No, it's good.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I know you said you weren't sure if you were going to do another marathon, but do you have any goals coming up?
We have signed up for the Gasparilla Distance Challenge. It's in February.
Okay.
Another peer pressure. It's like several people's like, sign up for it. This is not going to be fun. So that's a goal, just to go My goal is to keep challenging myself.
Okay.
If I want to summarize it, these are events that challenge myself. It don't have to be something extraordinary. It can
Absolutely.
be, hey, I'm going to do crime prevention next week. It's going to be hot, but I'm going to do it. That's a goal. So I'm going to keep challenging myself. I want to Boston qualify one day.
Okay.
And I just told you I don't care if I ever run another marathon, but I want to Boston qualify for several reasons. Victor, he ran many of Boston marathons, but he ran one in particular where they had the bombing at the finish line, and he wound up giving me a patch from that race. And why did he give me that patch?
Wow.
I don't know why he gave me that patch, but that patch is in my nightstand, and it will continue to be in my nightstand until I at least give it a shot. Maybe he wanted me to do it. Victor was such an inspiration. I mean, this guy ran a 2:59 marathon at the age of 49. If you think you're too old and your best days are behind you, that's not right, because Victor was a prime example of just keep pushing yourself. Just keep going. He gave me that patch, and so that's one of my goals, is to Boston qualify one day. I might not do it, but I can guarantee I'm going to try.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so that's probably a long-term goal, bucket list item. I have a running joke with another guy named Don Morozco. Maybe when we're 65, 70, 80 years old, we'll qualify for Boston. Because the older you get, the better qualifying time, the easier qualifying time. Maybe when I get old enough, I'll qualify for Boston. So that's kind of my short-term and long-term goals, just to keep pushing myself. I just want to keep growing the running community, growing the Bluebell Bombers, and just see people improve and helping people and just stay active.
I love it. That's so cool.
The human body is not designed to sit on a couch. Whatever it is, I'm not going to be sitting on a couch. I'll sleep when I die.
There we got another mantra right there.
That's it. That's it. We've got plenty of time for that later on.
For somebody that hates to run, what is your favorite length to run?
My data tells me the 5K.
Okay.
Because I've done 105 out of those 168 races are 5K.
Wow.
It's my favorite length, I guess, because you do the 1 milers and the 2 milers, you're pretty much pushing yourself to the red zone real fast and then the longer stuff is different. I like the 5K, but I tell you what, the marathon training that we just went through for Houston, I took a liking to that half marathon distance.
Okay.
It's challenging because you're running close to your threshold for a long period of time, but you get to go slower, so it's a little bit easier on your body. I'd say the 5K based on the data, and just they're so more popular than all the other races, distances, and so I like a good old 5K.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah.
But I still hate running, though. You're not going to get me to say that I love running. I really don't. It's not fun. It's not fun.
When you're not running, Keith, what do you like to do?
I like to spend time with family and friends. We have a little not running community, but just our community where we live in Foul River is South Mobile County, so we call it SOMO. I like to hang out with the SOMO friends. We attend church regularly. I play disc golf, picked that up as a hobby. Pickleball.
I saw Christy's thing.
I'm very new to pickleball.
Get at it. Let's go. Let's do this, Keith.
I did tennis in the past, but now that I'm older, pickleball is very appealing. And plus, since I'm still a runner, it's less wear and tear on my knees. I'll play pickleball all day.
But I'll tell you, this is what's fascinating. I literally had a conversation, I think it was with Meredith, and I said, because we play together sometimes, and I said, do you think that us, by playing pickleball, because it's more sprinting,
yes, it is.
And it's faster pace than running.
Yeah.
And I said, do you think this is helping us with our speed? And she's like, it's got to be. And so
Well,
I'm like, it's got to be playing into it. I absolutely love the game.
It's activating
So
muscles
much
that
fun.
you will not use
Yeah.
in running. And yeah, absolutely. Anything where you're breaking a sweat like that's going to be good for you. So it's a fast-growing sport right now.
So much
I've
fun.
played like twice, so I'm just such a rookie. It's not
You
even
just
funny.
tell me when and where, Keith, and we'll be there.
I'm liking
I love
pickleball right now.
It's so much fun.
Yeah, so
I love that.
we just like to do things like that as a family, and any excuse just to get outside and do something. So
I love that.
yeah,
That's
and we
so
do
cool.
the gym. We like the gym too. So
And your Peloton room.
Peloton room. There's always something to do.
do.
There's always something to do. When you're in that running community, there's always somebody doing something.
That's right.
Like Strava, what kind of social accountability is that? That's high. So just stay active.
Absolutely.
That's what I like to do.
Keith, any final words of wisdom, my friends?
I'd say the final word of wisdom would be just don't depend on motivation. we all need it,
Mhm.
but don't depend on it, because what you really need to do is be driven.
Mm.
Because if you depend on motivation, you're going to see the billboards that get you motivated. You're going to hear a song. You're going to get a friend to motivate you. It's going to fade. Motivation fades. It's not there every time you need it. In my opinion, that's why dieting don't work, because if you think about people going on diets or something like that, it's the philosophy is you're going to pay somebody to tell you what to eat. And that's not going to last, because eventually you're going to get tired of eating that and you're going to go back to eating what you want to eat.
Yeah.
So that's not the correct way to go about that situation. In my opinion, if you attack the root cause of you eating the wrong things or eating too much of something, what that really means is you're not disciplined enough. So don't depend on motivation to get whatever goal you're trying to get done, because it's going to fade and it's not going to be there all the time. If you're driven, go attack it.
Wow.
That's my final word of advice.
That's very great final word of advice.
Don't be motivated, be driven.
Wow.
Yep.
Thank you, Keith. Oh.
It was my honor.
This is what I love about the Run Your Story family, is that when we sit down together and I hear your stories, what drives you, what makes you hit the pavement, and the fact that Keith runs for his mom. That is just so beautiful and so amazing of Keith. And as he said, we get to run, and I love how he also talks about how, at the end of a race, rather than going and asking, what did you finish in, that we should go in and say, you look great, like, how you feel, love the outfit, whatever it is, we all did it together. And there's the front of the pack, middle of the pack, and back of the pack, and we all put in the miles. So I really appreciated Keith saying that. Such a fan of his. He's an amazing individual. I highly encourage that you get to know him, because you're going to leave inspired. You should leave inspired after hearing his story. And man, what a legacy that he continued with the Victors, Bluebell Bombers, but also that he's leaving for himself. And it's absolutely extraordinary. And so, Keith, thank you so much. This is truly an honor, my friends. Guys, again, thank you to our Patreon supporters. They make this podcast possible. So we keep going because of our Patreon supporters, and I'm truly, truly grateful for them. I absolutely love and adore each and every one of them, and they're all so special to me. So I love our Patreon supporters. Again, guys, go like, share, comment. The stories need to be heard. Your stories are incredible, and they're beautiful and messy, and that's so much like life, and of course, so much like running. We have beautiful runs and we have messy runs, but it's still a run. And so I truly appreciate that. And again, all the things that Keith said, just incredible. And a huge shout out to Mars Hill, as always. Thank you so much for giving us such a beautiful and safe space to be able to share our stories, because it is hard. And I told Keith after the podcast how much I appreciated him being vulnerable, because a lot of people didn't know this is what he told me. And so now you know his story, now you know what he's thinking about when he's running. And so that's being vulnerable, and I truly appreciate that. And so being in a safe space gives us that opportunity to share that. So thank you again to Mars Hill. As always, thank you to our editor, website designer, Mr. Tech Guy, all things Gilliard Tech Services. Truly appreciate you and what you do. He works for free, but for Run Your Story, I hope to one day be able to pay him. So our Patreon supporters are helping us get there. So thank you guys. It's so much goes into putting on this podcast, and it means everything when they get shared, when you guys comment on them, when you guys sign up as Patreon supporters, because it does cost to put on a podcast. And so we love hearing the feedback from you guys. It truly means everything to us, and it keeps us going. It fuels us on those long runs. And so thank you again so much for believing in Run Your Story. And so guys, as I love to say, Keith's stories become a part of my story, become a part of your story. And so lace up those running shoes, hit the pavement, and go run your story, because every story needs to be heard.